The forklift. It provides the support companies need to easily and efficiently complete large tasks and move the heaviest loads. In the hands of an unskilled operator, however, a forklift can be dangerous. Without proper training on safe operation, an operator is a potential hazard to themselves as well as every employee around them. This video is part of a comprehensive training program designed to help you become an authorized forklift operator within your company. The information you learn, along with your hands-on training, will help keep you and your coworkers safe from harm while working with these machines. During your employment as a forklift operator, you will be required to undergo refresher training every now and then as equipment is replaced or upgraded. This is in addition to a required performance evaluation that will occur at least once every 3 years. These safety reviews, together with what you learn today, the experience you gain through your daily employment, and your adherence to the equipment operation rules of your company will ensure that you are always operating your forklift in the safest way possible. Many people mistakenly think that because they know how to operate other types of machinery, such as a car or skid loader, they can operate a forklift. This isn't necessarily the case. Answer the following questions to see how well you understand operational basics for a forklift. A forklift drives just like an automobile. True or false? The counterweight on the rear of a forklift will help prevent a forklift from tipping over. True or false? A forklift is so heavy, it is only in danger of tipping over when carrying a load. True or false? To answer these, and perhaps some additional questions you may have, let's follow Andy on his first day on the job as a forklift operator. Frank, Andy's supervisor, is walking him through the key elements of safe, effective forklift operation.
Andy, good to see you again. Welcome aboard.
Thanks a lot.
So, everything going well for you so far?
Yeah, good.
Good. As you can see, we got a lot of things going on around here. We want to get you up to speed as quickly as possible. So tell me, have you ever driven a forklift before?
No, but I have a pretty good idea on what to do. I used to do construction with my dad's company and operate skid loaders and other machinery and stuff, so I should be fine.
I can understand where you might think that way, but forklift operation isn't quite that simple. We got a lot of ground to cover before you become a forklift operator, so let's take a walk. Okay, Andy, this is the main type of forklift you'll be using here in the warehouse.
Main type? I didn't know there was more than one kind of forklift.
Oh yeah, forklifts come in many different classifications. They come in all shapes and sizes. For example, this is a Class 1 sit-down, counterbalance lift truck. Forklifts can come with electric motors or work in narrow aisles. They can be hand trucks or combination hand rider trucks. They can have internal combustion engines or be outfitted for work over rough terrain.
Well, I don't know about the rest of the forklifts that you mentioned, but I've seen this kind before, and it should be a breeze to operate.
It's not quite as simple as you may think. While its relative size is smaller than an automobile, this particular forklift is made with a counterbalance on the back end, right behind the rear tires. This weight can cause this forklift to weigh up to 2 to 3 times more than an automobile. It is this weight that helps to counterbalance the forklift against any load that it may carry. So while the forklift shares some similarities with an automobile, such as a steering wheel, 4 tires, and gauges, it actually drives quite differently. To begin with, most automobiles have a front braking system and a rear braking system. On this particular forklift, you only have a rear braking system, so it does not stop as quickly. Now this is important because you need to travel at a safe rate of speed in case you need to stop for a pedestrian or an emergency with a load. Another very important difference between a forklift and an automobile is that an automobile will use its front wheels to determine its direction, whereas a forklift will use its rear wheels for steering. This is important because that allows a forklift a very tight turning radius, but it also causes the rear section to swing out. If you're traveling at an unsafe rate of speed, that swing in the rear section may become greater than you anticipate, thus hitting materials and/or a pedestrian if that swing becomes uncontrollable. Another important difference is in the suspension. A car's suspension actually smooths out the bumps in the road. It allows it to navigate through the turns and thus creates a smooth ride. A car uses a 4-point suspension, whereas a forklift uses a 3-point suspension, thus creating a clear difference in how the two machines operate.
How so?
It's really quite simple, actually. A car's suspension system is a 4-point suspension system, thus creating a rectangle. This allows for the even distribution of weight even if the car is accelerating, maneuvering, or braking. A forklift suspension system is a 3-point suspension system. 1 point at the front left wheel, 1 point at the front right wheel, and 1 point in the middle of the rear wheel axle, thus creating a stability triangle.
Wait, stability triangle. What is it?
The stability triangle is a theoretical triangle that's formed by the forklift suspension system. It's an important concept to remember because as long as the forklift's center of gravity remains within that triangle, the forklift won't tip over if you're carrying a load or just moving from place to place.
Center of gravity.
Center of gravity is a balancing point of an object. Think of it this way. If you were pedaling a tricycle and going around a corner and you moved your weight or your center of gravity to the narrowest part of the triangle, you were very likely to tip over. But if you moved your weight or center of gravity to the widest part of the triangle, you were far less likely to tip over.
But how do you find your center of gravity?
Well, the center of gravity is determined by the load in which you're carrying. Let me show you. The first thing you need to do when determining the maximum load capacity of the forklift is find the identification plate. Every forklift manufacturer puts one of these on their machines. Now, the identification plate contains some very valuable information, such as engine specifications, serial number, weight of the forklift, type designation, and maximum load capacity. Now, the maximum load capacity is how much the forklift can safely carry, but this isn't the only factor when determining the center of gravity. When the forklift is unloaded, the center of gravity is in the middle of the forklift. When properly loaded, the center of gravity moves slightly forward because the load and the counterweight are working together. But if the forklift becomes overloaded, the center of gravity moves outside the stability triangle and the forklift becomes unstable.
Wow. What do I need to do so that doesn't happen?
Remember to take into account the load's weight, height, and position when determining whether it will be safe to lift and carry. A forklift's center of gravity will also shift when accelerating, braking, or turning. So it's important to always drive at a safe speed and avoid any sudden maneuvers. Also, always make sure you're aware of the conditions of your driving surface. Due to the truck's 3-point suspension, even a relatively small change in surface conditions, such as a pothole, can pose a hazard, shift the center of gravity, and cause the forklift to tip over in transit. When working on an incline, you must be especially careful, as picking up loads on inclines, even inclines that are not steep, can radically shift your center of gravity. Whenever possible, try and move the load to a level surface and then lift to avoid a possible tip over.
Now, I only have to be concerned with the center of gravity when I'm carrying a load, right?
Go ahead and have a seat. Actually, that's not necessarily true. The vehicle's counterweight system still affects the vehicle even if you're not carrying a load. This is especially true when you're making turns or moving from location to location. You still need to be concerned with the center of gravity.
Sounds good. So, am I ready to drive then?
Not quite yet. Before you drive a vehicle, you want to complete a pre-operation inspection form. While this form isn't mandatory at all job sites, we like to use this form to make us aware of any maintenance issues that may occur before you drive the vehicle. Okay? With this form, you want to look at some very specific areas of the operation of the vehicle, such as fluid levels, accelerator, brakes, hydraulic controls, lights, and tires. And if you find a problem with any of these areas, you want to make your immediate supervisor aware as quickly as possible so that these repairs can be done before you operate the vehicle. Sound good?
Yeah, I had no idea so much went into operating a forklift before you even started driving.
Absolutely. Here you go.
You can safely operate a forklift from outside the driver's seat. True or false? If a forklift is in danger of tipping over, you should jump out of the driver's seat to safety. True or false? When driving a forklift, it's safest to keep the forks as high as possible. True or false?
Okay, Frank. I've checked all my critical components. I understand my center of gravity.
Okay.
I'm ready to jump on and drive.
Oh, wait a minute. There is no jumping on and driving a forklift. You have to follow proper procedure, okay? First of all, you should always face the forklift. Secondly, you should always get on using 3 points of contact, 2 hands and a foot. That's in case a hand or a foot slip off, okay? So go ahead and get on the forklift using 3 points of contact. Excellent. Now, if your forklift has a safety belt, it should be worn at all times, okay? For the same reason you'd wear a safety belt in a car, it helps to protect you against a collision, but it also keeps you within the protective frame or tip-over cage.
Oh, so I should stay in the forklift if it tips over.
That's right. A forklift operator should always remain inside the protective cage in case of a tip-over accident to avoid being crushed by either the forklift or its load. This cage is here to protect you, so you should always keep your arms and legs inside its boundaries. Okay? Also, you should never operate a forklift from anywhere other than the driver's seat. The forklift could jump out of gear and injure either you or one of your co-workers.
Well, I'm in the seat. My seatbelt is fastened. It means I'm ready to drive, right?
Not quite. Before moving, you need to check the road for any hazardous conditions, such as rough or sloped surface areas, narrow aisles which may restrict your maneuverability or vision, hazardous or classified areas that may be contained within your route, any ramps or other environmental conditions which may be contained within your work area.
Okay, so check the conditions of my route, seatbelt, 3 points of contact. Got it.
Okay, why don't you hop down and let's take a look at the forks. Before you move the forklift, you want to make sure the forks are at the proper operating height, which is about 2 to 4 inches from the ground. That's so you don't run into any materials, lights, or low-hanging pipes. Okay? But you also need to remember that if along your route there are any sloped or rough or uneven surfaces, you need to be able to adjust your forks so that the load doesn't shift or potentially fall off. Okay? Also remember, never have anyone ever walk underneath the forks, even if they're unloaded, because this potentially could cause a hazard or an injury. Also, don't have anyone grab on or hold on to the forklift. It could unbalance the forklift, or they could fall off and cause an injury.
Got it. No free rides.
That's right. Now let's take a look at some forklifts in operation and consider some other issues.
When working around pedestrians, forklift operators have the right-of-way. True or false? When unloading from a semi-truck trailer, the truck driver only needs to set his emergency brakes and does not need to chock the wheels. True or false?
As you can see, Andy, we often operate forklifts in the presence of pedestrians. As the forklift operator, it is your responsibility to maintain safety while maneuvering around others.
Well, shouldn't they watch out for me?
Just like the rules of the road, the pedestrian has the right of way when working around a forklift, so you must always maintain a safe rate of speed. Even if you planned your route, you looked at every bump and every turn, you still need to keep an eye out for pedestrians.
So why did he do that?
Jim was actually following the rules of the road for a warehouse situation such as this one, where we have narrow aisles and vision is limited. You should always approach an intersection slowly and honk or beep to let pedestrians or other forklift operators know of your presence. Then let any pedestrians pass by before beginning your maneuvers again. Okay? Now, Andy, the docks and trucks present a very special problem for forklift operators. To begin with, you never want to drive too close to the edge of the dock, because your ability to stop may be hampered by slippery conditions or the weight of the vehicle. Also, you could drive off the edge of the dock, causing serious injury from the fall or even being killed by a truck backing into the dock. So it's very important that you never engage in any stunt driving or horseplay while working around a dock.
That sounds like a good rule to me.
Okay, now we're going to move on over here. You always want to make sure that the truck is secure. As you can see, he's about to drive the load across the dock board or bridge plate. Okay? The bridge plate is used for loading for railroad cars, trailers, and such. Okay? You always want to ensure that the truck is secured to the dock. You never want to rely on the truck driver for that information. You want to check it for your own safety, okay? Because if the dock plate or bridge plate were to fall, it could cause a serious injury. You should never rely on the truck driver or anyone else to make sure that the trailer is secure. You should check it for yourself, for your own safety, okay? As you can see, the operator is going to check the deck for any breaks or weaknesses.
You should probably check the height of your load also, right?
That's right, Andy. You should always check to see that there's sufficient clearance for any overhanging installations. One more point you should be aware of is that when it comes to ramps, you should always drive with the load facing the incline of the ramp. This helps keep the forklift balanced. If you drive with the load facing the decline, it could fall or tip the forklift over.
That's because the center of gravity can shift, right?
Exactly. Just like we talked about, different conditions can cause the center of gravity to shift and unbalance the forklift, causing it to tip. Now we're almost done, so let's go take a look at the loading process.
As long as the weight of a load does not exceed a forklift's capacity, it is always safe to lift. True or false? If a load obstructs your view, it is best to drive in reverse with the load trailing. True or false?
Hi, Sam.
Oh, hey, Frank.
Hey, this here's Andy. He's going to be joining our team. Today is his first day.
Oh, hi, Andy. Nice to meet you. Welcome. So you're going through your training today?
Yeah, but really I'm ready to drive one of these things.
I know what you mean, but this training's important.
Absolutely. Sam, can you show Andy what you're doing?
Oh, sure. Okay. Come on. Okay, well, Andy, transporting any load involves a certain amount of danger unless certain safety precautions are used. So before lifting any load, it's important to inspect it to ensure that it's stable and to see if any parts will fall off.
Well, this one here looks pretty unstable.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this load will have to be secured before it's safe to pick up. Just because a load is within the weight capacity of the forklift doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe to lift. So you can see that the weight of this load is off to the side and off center, and that could cause the forklift to tip. So this load will have to be balanced before it's safe to pick up. So we've already prepared this load and ensured that it's stable and no materials will fall and it won't throw off the weight balance during transport.
Now, what if a load is too heavy to begin with?
Well, if a load is too heavy, you could always break it down into parts. As a matter of fact, these two pallets used to be part of one big load that we broke down into two pieces so that it would be safer to lift. So now we've inspected this load and we see that it's secure, and so now it's safe to pick up. So I'll show you how to do that.
First, see how Sam moves squarely to the load. She moves her forks far enough apart to keep the load stable. She then drives the forks completely underneath the load and tilts the mast up. Then she lifts the load. Now remember, if the load were to obstruct her view, then she would have to travel in reverse with the load trailing.
Yeah, she wouldn't be able to see where she's going otherwise.
Exactly. See you later, Sam. Thanks. Now, Andy, are you ready to talk about post-operation and maintenance?
Yep. And then I get to drive, right?
I promise. When you finish operating a forklift, there are a few safety precautions you want to follow, okay? First of all, you always want to park in an authorized forklift area. Never leave your forklift in an unauthorized area. Before you turn off the engine, you want to lower the forks to the ground to avoid any tripping hazards for pedestrians. And set the gear shift to neutral and turn the engine off. Don't forget to take the key. Now set the brake to avoid any movement and then dismount using the 3 points of contact system.
Okay, so park in an authorized area, lower the forks, turn off the engine, remove the key, set the brake, and step down using the 3-point system.
Exactly. Now, after you dismount, you want to inspect the vehicle to see if there have been any maintenance issues that may have occurred during the operation. And if you find that the vehicle is made unsafe during operation, you want to notify your supervisor as soon as possible.
If you are authorized to operate a forklift, you are also authorized to refuel or recharge it. True or false? Refueling or recharging must take place in a designated area. True or false?
All right, Andy. Now we've covered general concepts of forklift operation, pre-operation inspection, pedestrian safety, dock and ramp precautions, loading procedures, and post-operation duties.
Well, that looks like just about everything, so am I ready to drive now? Huh?
How are you going to drive your vehicle if it isn't powered?
What?
Come on, we're going to talk about batteries and fueling. Different forklifts operate on different types of power. Some use batteries while others run on fuel. We'll cover batteries first. The first rule is never attempt to remove a battery unless you've been trained and authorized to do so. Batteries are filled with acid to maintain their charge and can be very dangerous. You should only change the battery in a designated area to reduce the risk of injury. Always wear goggles and other personal protective equipment to protect against dangerous acid inside the battery. And know where the nearest eye wash station or shower is located in case of a spill or splash. When you're ready to change the battery, turn the forklift off and set the brake. Make sure the battery is secured before lifting it out. Stand clear and remove the battery using a conveyor, overhead hoist, or other machine designed for this purpose. When placing the new battery in, make sure it's properly positioned and secured before starting the machine again.
Can these batteries be charged?
Well, certainly they can, and the process is relatively simple. But like everything else we've talked about, you need to follow the proper safety precautions. First of all, you want to wear your safety goggles. Then you want to pull your forklift into the proper position, making sure that the brake is set and the forks are down. You also want to make sure that the ventilation system is working within the battery charging area. Okay. Now, if you're charging the battery on the forklift, you want to open up the battery compartment to release any buildup of heat or hydrogen gas. Okay. You want to make sure that the vent caps are uncovered and the battery caps are open to release any heat. Also, make sure that the charger is off before plugging in. Now, you want to plug in using the proper polarity, black to negative, red to positive. And if any electrolyte is by chance spilled, you want to follow your company's proper safety procedures for cleaning up that spill. Okay. For those machines that run on fuel, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, never smoke or allow open flames or any equipment that generates sparks in the refueling area. Second, always make sure there is sufficient ventilation in the area. Third, make sure there is a fire extinguisher nearby. And lastly, make sure there is a barrier that protects the pump against vehicle damage. Well, Andy, I think that about covers it.
So, now?
Now you're ready to drive.
All right.
A forklift drives just like an automobile. False. The counterweight on the rear of a forklift will help prevent a forklift from tipping over. True. A forklift is so heavy, it is only in danger of tipping over when carrying a load. False. You can safely operate a forklift from outside the driver's seat. False. If a forklift is in danger of tipping over, you should jump out of the driver's seat to safety. False. When driving a forklift, it's safest to keep the forks as high as possible. False. When working around pedestrians, forklift operators have the right-of-way. False. When unloading from a semi-truck trailer, the truck driver only needs to set his emergency brakes and does not need to chock the wheels. False. As long as the weight of a load does not exceed a forklift's capacity, it is always safe to lift. False. If a load obstructs your view, it is best to drive in reverse with the load trailing. True. If you are authorized to operate a forklift, you are also authorized to refuel or recharge it. False. Refueling or recharging must take place in a designated area. True.
Well, Andy, You completed the pre-evaluation checklist, and you did a fantastic job.
Well, it's thanks to you, Frank. Your training really set me on the right track. I mean, I thought I knew everything there was to know about a forklift operation, but, you know, even through this evaluation, I learned a thing or two.
Well, I'm glad you understand the importance of the training and the evaluation sheet. So, hey, why don't we go get some lunch?
Just one question, though.
What's that?
Can I drive?
Yeah, you can drive.